Yeah, you got yours in the background. Well, you did sign mine, by the way, and I'm going to touch on that as well.
Okay, awesome.
I think it's a little telling of our relationship.
Oh no, oh God, I'm so nervous.
Nothing bad. But yeah, whenever you're ready.
Oh, we're doing it. Oh,
yeah.
we're already. Oh, what do you have?
Recording? Oh yeah, I see
there.
I didn't even see it up there. But yeah, might as well. Are you doing any too?
So it's funny, I had just had. I was doing a little bit of work before we started, but give me a second. I will pour something.
But no red shirt, just red pants.
I'm in leisure wear right now.
Well, you got to celebrate the Eagles, man. They're the best of the worst.
So I'm wearing Eagles gear, but I've got to be honest. I'm posing. In no way am I watching football this year. I have so little interest. It's funny, the game was the other night because the debate was also on, and I had friends that were like, oh man, Eagles, yay or nay or whatever was going on in the game. And I'm just like, I was completely removed from it because I was just focused on watching the debate for entertainment purposes, really. But yeah, it's funny how removed I am from football this year and sports in general, I think.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird. But yeah, I've only been watching anything when it comes to the Eagles. I think the last time I really watched even baseball, let alone anything, was a few years ago. I just don't have the bandwidth for it anymore. Here. Yeah, that's a little better.
Look at that. You're gonna help me out. You're gonna help me out in post-production.
Well, I mean, look at these. I need to get curtains back here. We got here a few months ago, so we were actually moved during quarantine. So
wow.
It had its own special kind of problems.
From where to where?
Right now, I don't know if because I heard Christian talking about it. I don't know if he would be aware of this. But yeah, the inventory is super low, so it's easy to sell a house. Really hard to find one. So yeah, it was a little difficult. We were kind of crashing with my mother-in-law for a good month.
Wow.
While we were waiting to get into this one. So luckily everything worked out.
Where did you move from to?
Because anyway, I'll get to it. But yeah, I was in Lansdale.
Okay.
So I was actually a few blocks away from the Red Lotus and Holly and Holly Beck and all that. So yeah, I used to be down that way. And yeah, my wife was like, with this COVID thing happening, it's like, well, should we stay here? Should we go? I mean, we were in this kind of 3-year plan, a year into a 3-year plan of moving out. And we're like, what if we just do it now? Well, the daughter's going to go into kindergarten and we'll do it up here. And then it was like, and this was during COVID. Maybe we just really didn't think about it too much, but it's like, well, the kids are not going to actually be in classes. They're not going to meet anybody. So, I mean, they're all doing virtual stuff right now. So it's, maybe we could have waited a year, maybe not, but we might've been the same kind of situation again. So now we're up in Allentown area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a big move.
Yeah, it's 45 minutes. Not a huge move, but my parents were on a 2 or 3 year plan of moving down to Delaware, and they were in Bluebell. So we would have lost any kind of extra help we could have asked for. Now with COVID too, we were up here, and we can ask for some help, but not so much because I'm going to have to go see people and travel and what have you too. So I always got to be careful as well.
Well, Paul, it's funny because, in thinking back, it's like another one of these ones where it's like, I kind of remember you. I remember you always around in school. And I definitely remember, I just did one with Dustin Canner. And I remember, we were all in homeroom together senior year. And I kind of always remember you around. And I feel like I always fucked with you. Not
in a bad way, maybe. But.
Yeah, no, not a bad way. But I feel like you were just always kind of in my space. I've talked about not feeling comfortable enough to talk to certain people because I felt like, we weren't in the same realm. And so, but I felt like you were in a realm with me where I could say shit. And so that's why I'm very curious what was actually what I wrote in your yearbook.
Okay. You want me to go? I'm going.
It would cure my curiosity right away.
I'm curious if I actually signed yours or not, because I don't know if I have a memory of that or the fact that you made, and I'll ask you in a second, but
yeah, let's go backwards in the show here.
If you even had it with you, you're like, just give it to me, or it's somewhere else doing something. And it may have happened in that homeroom because,
exactly.
Everyone, at least in that homeroom, was always the C's or B's, C's, D's people. So, I have you here, Brad. Paul. And this is what I think is reminiscent of how involved we were in each other's lives here.
Okay.
I've seen more of you than you know. I watched 10 minutes of track tapes with Warren or someone working on a video package. Good luck in college. You're a cool guy, unlike your brother. I guess you know my younger brother somehow, Brad Corbett.
Wow. Yeah. I
seen you on tape. That's what I got from it.
Wow, major creep session. Okay. I feel like you definitely signed mine, and I guess good production. I should have found it before I logged in, but
you couldn't decipher it because my handwriting is absolutely terrible. I mean, with my customers, I tell them like, let me write this down. Don't worry, it's encrypted.
Well, the funny thing is, now that you say that, I totally forgotten about that. I somehow did know your brother from somewhere. And I feel like once I made that connection that you two are related, and it's like, oh, I know your brother, we're in homeroom together. I feel like I used to fuck with him. And like, I don't know. I feel, if I'm being correct, I feel like maybe I used to call your brother a nerd or something. Or maybe I used to ask like, which one of you guys is the nerd? Is it your brother or is it you? And he would be like, oh, my brother's definitely a fucking nerd. Like something like that is what.
I don't know if I said that about him, but he was a freshman when we were seniors. He was taller than me. He was a bit of a twig. Like okay. I was trying right then, like, hey, you need to start working out. You put something on, man. You're gonna be pretty diesel. And it took him till like almost senior year and past to actually start really hitting the gym. And he's a beast now.
Well, now I wouldn't fuck with him now then.
I made a reference like that in his my best man speech for his wedding. So.
Well, I can't find you in here, and that disappoints me so much. And maybe just in my head, I thought you signed it, but I don't know.
Maybe it was busy. But maybe it was off somewhere else. Maybe you had to sign in it or something.
The reason I watched so much tape review is because I did TV Lab, so I was probably putting together some sort of a clip for like a highlight reel of track or something like that, and I probably had to go through like all this footage of you running.
Yeah. Well, you think Warren would have remembered what my name was at that time? Remember, it's Cannon, not G. Cannon.
Yeah, I couldn't let you go out like that in his episode.
Thanks, Fred.
So when did you actually come into Wissahickon?
That was actually third grade. So into Stony Creek. So I actually came from Mount Airy section of Philly. So I kind of knew the area when Eric was talking about where exactly he was. I was by Henry Houston Elementary School, like a block away from whatever train station there is for Mount Airy up there.
Okay.
Where we were at.
So
then third grade, Stony Creek, and was about a block from there. Growing up in Whitpain.
So what brought you into the suburbs?
Well, my parents wanted to get out because there was definitely some gun violence in the middle schools that we were going to be going into. So that's why I got out of there. So they wanted to move. So they moved up, they upgraded, moved to Whitpain, and now it's one of the best places to live. One of the best suburbs in out of Philadelphia. So it was kind of nice growing up there. It was very quiet.
Yeah, one of the top school districts.
Definitely. So that's kind of why I kind of always stayed in the area. I always felt part of that. I mean, this is probably the farthest I've lived from Actually, probably not. I mean, I lived in Philly for when I was in school, but that was about, about it. So
Going like you're like 9 years old, 10 years old, uh, maybe like 8, 9, third grade.
yeah,
So, I mean, for me, I already had my best friends, and I've stated a couple times they were kind of based off of where I lived. Mike Mayall, Ray Campion, guys in South Ambler. For you, did you have a hard time like going at 8, 9 years old? Did you have friends already in your neighborhood and then having to leave, going to Wissahickon School District, Whipping? Was that tough?
yeah. I had a pretty, as you had, like a pretty diverse group of friends as well. I had, people from all walks as well, over there. And then moving out to Whitpain, I still remember like when we got there and was we're unpacking, I saw some kids playing up the street. I'm like, bye, mom, dad, I gotta go. so yeah, there was a few more kind of underclassmen to us. So a year behind us, up the street from us, Jeff Weiser, Nick Price, up that way too. Was the Brady's, but I didn't really meet, hang out with them that much. Matt Brady, Stephen Brady.
I don't know that.
And they're definitely huge sports guys. So I think that's why we didn't end up hanging so much. There wasn't a lot of people in our grade right in that area where I was at. So I don't know if you remember, but Claudia DeCourcy at all. Yeah, she was kind of around the corner from us. I don't think she went much past middle school with us and then went somewhere else. But yeah, I mostly people a little younger than me who was hanging out with immediately, at least in the neighborhood.
I went to Shady Grove when I started Madison and then moved fourth grade into Shady Grove, which was a much bigger school. And again, Madison based off of the people that kind of lived in that direct area of Ambler. Did you start to gain, I don't know, a group of friends as you're going up now through elementary school in Wissahickon?
One guy I remember was a good friend when I first started in third grade. Mario, I couldn't remember his last name because I think we only get one yearbook when we graduate from elementary school. He wasn't there that long, but I started really kind of getting into a group of friends once I started getting into scouts. So I started doing Cub Scouts. So yeah, I caught that you did that too as well. How far did you go?
I made it to a Weeblo.
Weeblo, okay. So didn't even get out of elementary school with it, huh? But yeah, so that was my group. So it was Wesley Ritz, who I don't think ever went to middle school with us. So that would have been the first time you would have saw him. So, but him and Ryan Conway as well. I believe we all had a kind of sleepover back then at Wesley Ritz's house, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that's the scouts was kind of when I first kind of more close contact with a lot of different people from the neighborhood and whatever. But, don't quote me. I think Kevin DeProssos was my den as well, but I'm not sure. All I remember is at the crossover from going from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts, and you're supposed to like symbolically go over this little bridge. I'm like, turn to Kevin. It's like, you going? It's like, no. So he didn't continue, but I did.
I remember once I got to a certain age, I stopped going to meetings, but I still had the uniform. And this is like the tail end of being a Weeblo, I guess. And I would still show up like around this time, Halloween time, for the hay rides. I love the hay rides. And it became a point where like that was all I really liked about being a Cub Scout was the hay rides. I missed the whole meaning, the purpose behind the organization, I think, at some point during my youth.
Yeah. I think it's a really good program. I just like Warren did, I took it all the way to the end. So yeah, I'm an Eagle Scout myself as well. So I really enjoyed it. I got the most out of it, and it's a shame you didn't continue with it, because there's definitely a lot of experiences through there that you just don't get as easily just doing it yourself. There's already infrastructure and people helping you to kind of do these fun things that are once in a kind of a lifetime things. And if you want me to go into it, I can go into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So back up. So we cross over. We're out of. I don't even remember the pack number. I think it was pack 6, maybe out of Stony Creek. but we went to a troop up in Plymouth Meeting. So it's like 20 minutes away is the closest troop. I know Ryan Conway went. Steven Sellers was in that troop as well. Even Matt Greger, Ryan Conway's older brother Neil was in it as well. Keyshawn even joined at some point. I don't think he was in Cub Scouts, if I remember correctly. So please, someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, there was a group up there, and we got to go. Like, there was a camping trip nearly every month, even in the winter. You're camping in cold weather. You are, the high adventure activities, doing like some canoeing down the Delaware River, doing like gates and speed races on the canals. I did even a thing called Sea Base as well, which was basically going to Isla taking going with a captain, and you're basically manning the sailboat to get you down to Key West and come back. So it's like a 3 or 4 day trip, and on a boat, when you're sleeping on this boat too, and helping run it and all this stuff.
And how old are you while you're doing that?
It's like 15, 16.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was fun. It's some fun activities, and the one I'll always remember is Philmont. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or come across it, but it's basically a big reserve gifted to the Scouts, I believe, in Colorado, where it's, they can't even guess how many acres it is, and I'll be wrong. But yeah, you end up basically backpacking for a 5-6 day trip, doing something like 100 miles in a backpack around this area, panning for gold, doing lumberjack activities, climbing mountains and such. And so yeah, it was a good time.
See, I didn't give it enough of a chance because, I think when I stopped, it was like we would do camping, but I feel like it would be like once a year, maybe twice a year, and it would be in a cabin. Yeah, it would be in a cabin. And it would basically be like cooking hot dogs and marshmallows, and it would be like 20 kids, it felt like. And it was fun, but it was just like a weekend away of like not watching TV, and I didn't really learn much. I remember like you would go shoot a rifle, like a BB gun or something.
Yeah.
And fish. Like, it wasn't like learning a whole bunch of stuff. It certainly wasn't like what you were experiencing. And I don't even remember like adventurous stuff to earn patches or anything like that. It was like, oh, hey, you did something, and guess what? You got a patch afterwards. Oh, I did? Okay.
I think at that age, and my son's going through it right now, and I've been his den leader, and now my daughter's starting it as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's to try to help mold them into, this is how you take care of yourself. This is how you act and be a good person. It's kind of trying to help mold kids in that regard. And then like the real stuff where things start really kind of getting put into you is the Boy Scout. It's not really the Cub Scout area. So you were just shy of getting to the really good stuff. The long camping away from parents and effing around in the woods, basically.
Yeah, but Cub Scouts was like a huge part of like at least my childhood. When I talk about like having like those friends, like we were all in Cub Scouts together. Brandon Marcraft, Alex Mader, Andy Bell, who stuck with it. I don't know if you had anything with him, but like that was like where my whole core of friends came from. We were all in the same den together, den, then troop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we were all in the same den together. So it was like more so than sports. I can't remember having like big friendships out of baseball or basketball, or the one year I did soccer. It was Cub Scouts where all my friends were.
I think with the Cub Scouts, since they were based off of what grade level you're in, you always got to meet the kids in your grade. Now I have the same problem that Chris Warren has, is we were young for the group we were going to be in. So all the intramural sports I was always with the kids in the grade below me. So it's just, I didn't have a chance to really build, any relationships with sports with people I actually were in classes with. So it was kind of, difficult in that regard to kind of get introduced to the whole social aspect of, of school and everything in that way.
Outside of like Cub Scouts, do you have any interests as a kid?
I didn't enjoy the art classes and what have you there. But yeah, Scouts was kind of a big part of that. I mean, my dad's an Eagle Scout too, so it's kind of the cycle continues, obviously, and hopefully my son will want to do it too and continue with it. But yeah, Scouts was a big part of it for a long while. We didn't do the church or didn't do church stuff, and yeah, just kept going with school and Scouts. And you know, intramural sports like soccer and baseball, I did those too. So
Yeah. Were you a big like Philadelphia sports fan?
I think I remember being really weirdly into baseball as a kid, like weirdly into baseball, like the card collecting, which was like big thing to do around that time, like
Yeah.
93, 94, doing all that.
We all thought we were making money.
Got the Beckett, price guides. Like, oh, my cards are worth this much now. Woohoo!
$1.78. What?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I remember like even weird kind of like nerdy stuff about it. Like I would start going through the cards and like, oh, it's this relief pitcher's birthday on this day. I write it down in the little, this little homework book. I had one of those. I put it in there for some odd reason. I remember doing that.
When you got to middle school, I've talked about the pods being so weird. And you've got these friends from middle school. Did you find yourself in pods with any of these kids, or did you have to start over?
It's completely new. So, I mean, it kind of is what it is there. But yeah, as I was saying, like one of my best friends was Wesley Redson Eating, go to our middle school. He went to St. Helena's and kind of did the Catholic school route. For a lot of that. So I didn't really have much with him, who I ended up really kind of hanging out with. And I think it's just because he was also on my bus, and he was, just a few roads away as well, was Matt Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Smith.
Yeah.
So yeah, me and him started hanging out, and it was like nearly every day after school, kind of hanging out once I was done all stuff. And yeah, he was kind of the one I hung out with, particularly on the weekends and what have you too. Get into trouble with.
For middle school, I mean, I know you did track in high school for like I guess the last 3 years. Were you doing any sports or any activities in middle school?
I did do the track team then, and I think there I tried to do sprinting instead, and then didn't realize, and then basically gave up on it a little bit. For like my first freshman year, I did like almost nothing. I think I tried to go out for spring track and tried sprinting again, and mid-level area, bad, not great. I also found that the more stuff I did, the better my grades got, because I had to really budget my time. So every time I was really after school, I had to make sure I got as much crap done I could on the weekends when I had the time to do it. So I stopped, when I did track, I'm like, oh, well, I might as well continue running. I'll do cross country. And yeah, like the first race, I was in the novice race. So when you're in like invitationals, which is the first things that happen really, when you're doing doing cross country, there's 3 different races. One's novice, this is your first year doing it. So get out there, do what you can. First time doing it. Then there's JV, which is like a non-score kind of thing, and you can win. Maybe you can win a JV team medal, I'm not sure, but you could also win the varsity one, which the varsity race is based off of how many people actually really finish in the high level there. So first novice race, I came in fourth in there, and I was also fourth on the team, on the cross country team after that one race as well. So I actually was really good at it.
Right. I didn't know if there were 5 people on the team, or
what's that?
I didn't know if there were only 5 people on the team.
No, there's usually a good 20 amount of people there, but he had to. I still remember it because Mr. Gallagher was trying to like. He was the cross country coach. Like, you gotta go faster. You go faster. So he made fun of me afterwards. Because I actually yelled back at him while I was running. I can't go any faster. So obviously, if you can talk and run and yell during a race, you're probably not going fast enough.
You got to push harder. So that was in high school.
Yeah, so that was in high school. So yeah, I really found my area with cross country. Unfortunately, I just didn't really stay healthy with it. Every season I ended up with stress fractures at the end of the season. So I always had a boot on each year, then recuperated in winter track and got back to it in spring.
Oh wow, that's tough.
It was, but I mean, I did very well in it. I mean, it was always varsity in it, and actually made all league for cross country as well. So it was first team all league for cross country. So top 20 in our league for cross country, among other schools as well.
Paige Miller was the fastest girl in the world. Were you the fastest boy in the world? Can we say that? Can we put this
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Put that on the tag?
No. The only thing I could say is that when I was healthy, Paige never beat me. Paige was really good. I mean, I think she was always below 18 minutes. Like I'm always around like 17 and a half minutes for the 5K that we did. So I was decent. I just could not stay healthy, and it just continues to today, not being able to continue with it as best I can.
I was going to say, because I was saying maybe we need to have like a rematch for the 2021 reunion. Once we get these travel restrictions up, maybe we need to get the two of you on a starting line. And
well, technically that happens every year. There is an alumni meet every year. It's always right around my birthday. So I always know when it is. I don't even need to make sure I have an email for it, but it's always right around my birthday. And they get everyone to come that wants to go for the race or be part of the meet. So girls, guys, they come to the school and we run the course again.
Oh, that's
I don't know if we do that, but yeah, we do that every around August 17th.
When you're going from middle school to high school, that's like a huge jump. I feel like everyone kind of like makes a change. For you, big change going from middle school to high school as far as like what your social life is like. And
well, there, middle school to high school, at least at that point, I believe you also start, the scouts as well. So the scouting was a big part. So every kind of nearly 1 weekend a month, we were out camping doing something. So
wow.
I was by far the biggest offender of going every time almost.
How do you camp with a boot on, with a splint on your foot?
Yeah, it's actually makes it easier to get around. You're less likely to twist your ankle.
Okay.
I think scouting is just kind of people who like to be outside, who like to. I used to always say people who like to start fires. So you spend like half your day just building up a big bonfire and then lighting it that night.
I mean, I loved Beavis and Butthead at the time, so that was right in that, 7th grade, 8th grade. That was definitely right in that wheelhouse.
Yeah. So I mean, around then I was doing that. I was hanging out with Matt Smith as well after school. I think kids with me and Wesley kind of grew apart since he was kind of at a different school at that point. So yeah, me and him were kind of our partners in crime. Do you remember Matt?
Matt Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a lot of different things about Matt Smith. Funny stuff and just good time guy. I felt like in high school I kind of lost touch with just kind of him as like as an everyday person, but in middle school I felt like we used to interact a lot.
Yeah, he was a fun guy. I don't know if you knew, but he did like pass away about 18 years ago.
Yeah. I remember.
You heard that?
Yeah. I definitely remember when I was going to ask if you had that friendship through high school. I felt like if I was, to look at like groups, he was definitely in a different like group than you were. So when you said you were friends with him, I'm thinking about it as kids, right? Like, oh my God, of course, like you're just kids. And so you haven't really developed like a clique in that way.
I don't feel like I, ever really developed a clique per se. I mean, yes, I was always in kind of the a lot more of the honors classes and that kind of area. But somehow me and him always kind of got along. He was always my friend, on the school bus and doing stuff. But yeah, he'd be the one I would be hanging out with on the weekends and what have you. So yeah, that lasted a lot through high school, actually. I think eventually he did leave, and I think went to a bit. I think they realized he had a bit of a learning disability. I'm not completely certain. And he went to, I think, even a special school over in Lansdale, actually, if I remember correctly. So yeah, we still hung out after he was doing that too. So unfortunately, there was a bit of a falling out at basically senior year, though. And that was mostly because I left my phone in his car, and he had a bit of a different group of friends than I did. And I don't know who or what group of friends in particular, but they came across my phone and kind of kept it and used it. So this was kind of a big deal at the time. But like my parents found the numbers from the bill and started calling all the numbers we didn't know. And it's like, one of your friends has my son's phone, blah, 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 blah. We're going to call it, there's going to be a problem. And I still remember this. Matt actually came to my work and was like, he's never come to my work. And he's like, you've got to stop this. There's a problem because the other guy has got, he's on probation or what have you. He's not going to want to get into trouble like this. Can you stop it? So yeah, when they realized, I think it was tough in the fact that we stopped talking. I think he went back to his group of friends. I think it was one other. I think Chris Miller was part of that group, I think, too. I wouldn't be, I remember coming across him a few times, hanging out with him after, and yeah, we just kind of never spoke after that, unfortunately. And then he passed away, and I didn't end up going to the funeral because I didn't know about it for another year.
Wow.
This is a common thread, and that's I a little bit attribute this to like me not being within certain social groups at the time to always hear about things. But at that time, I was, either commuting from Drexel or at home only on the weekends. But his grandfather rolled by and told me when he saw me out front. I think he purposely was changing his trip home to come by my house because he knew where I lived, and he told me, and that was devastating. See, even if you have a friend that you have a falling out with, you always think at some point we're gonna get over this, we're gonna be friends again. And yeah, unfortunately, I never really had that chance with Matt. And yeah, I eventually went and said hello to the grandparents and such. I mean, I mostly saw his grandparents when I was over at his house. His mom kind of hung out with herself, and I know he had a bit of an older brother that was way older and didn't really come around or what have you. But yeah, I ended up talking with his grandmother about it all, and I still haven't gone and seen his grave either. I feel very weird about that too. Just because you like get to that point where it's weird to come back and ask again. It goes on too long. At a certain point you're almost afraid to ask. Seems like it's just awkward.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I think I get it from your side, thinking that I think that just saying that you just kind of lost track, and hey, where is it again? And it's kind of like your easy out, so to speak, to find it. Wow, I didn't know that you guys were that close growing up.
Yeah, I don't think many people knew it, and we weren't, hanging out at school because we just weren't in those groups as well. And it may have been too that with his other groups of friends, and maybe, don't want to say that I'm hanging out. I don't know. I'm hanging out with this kid. I have no idea.
Well, that's kind of like
I don't know. It's kind of weird in that regard. But yeah, he was, at this point too, like I do have, I got more of my core group of friends from college, and I really have one I really am close with, and sometimes it's really kind of all I need, is that one real close friend that I'm gonna, hey, every month or two I'm gonna call. It's like, hey, let's go do something. Let's go hang out. So yeah, it's kind of in that same vein where I had that one friend.
Wow. I mean, that was a huge part of like me growing up when Ray died, was that Ray was like my best friend since I was 5, right? And grew up down the street from each other. And I had other friends, but I didn't have like other friends that long. All my other friends were from, same group, but were from high school, versus someone that you grew up with. And even when Ray, like I never had classes with Ray, but Ray and I would connect after school, on the weekends, sleepovers, Cub Scouts, whatever, swimming in each other's pools. So even though it didn't exist in school, it existed on the outside. And after, when he passed, I definitely had that feeling as far as like with friendships. And I only had a small group of friends in high school, but it's kind of stayed that way, where it's like my group of friends now mainly are like my ones from college time. Very similar in that way. That's kind of like where my biggest group of friends exist.
I mean, with high school and middle school and stuff, I do feel like I kind of missed out. I did try to, as you're talking, you've said, it's like when you, particularly that, I think the most nerve-wracking, because I mean, when you're in classes, you can go to classes and you may sit by someone you kind of know and you'll be fine. You got to pay attention anyway. Hopefully, hopefully you're paying attention. But then when it comes to like the socializing and then going to lunch, it's like, what the fuck am I going to sit with? Who am I going to sit with that I'm going to just like at least feel like I'm part of, hanging out, having a good, okay enough time. And that is always the worst part of the day, at least the new schedule, whatever it was, going into lunch. And then it's like, who am I going to freaking sit with?
I was just talking about this with I think it was Kim Clauder, where she was saying like that is, and I guess I always thought it was just me, but even Oma talked about when he first came to Wissahickon from England, and he like ate, I think he said he ate like in the bathroom or something, like for like his first year, because he didn't know. And for me, again, I didn't have classes with like Ray or Josh or Scott. And so every year we weren't not even the same lunch. I'd have to try and look in and, all right, who don't I argue with? Who doesn't say shut the fuck up, Corbett? Like, like who's safe? And girls were always out. I didn't have like relationships with girls in that way. It would have to be a blended group, but I would have to find like, it would take a little bit to find like a Sean Higgins or like a Justin Duffner, Matt Osga, a group that like I felt comfortable enough not getting, I guess, shamed. I don't know, I guess, did you feel like what do you think would happen if you sat down with someone you weren't?
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely, I can remember times, particularly in middle school, where I was like, okay, I'm good friend. I'm friendly with one of the guys, or as you would probably call them, like the good kid group, the cool kid group. And it's like, I'll go sit down with him. And then there's just one person at that table that doesn't get along with me for whatever reason. And it could be made up, it could be just they have power or what have you. And then I just get a stare. And so, I mean, if you want to go look at middle school, the style anyway, Jesus, what was I thinking in regards to a bunch of different things with my personal choices back then in regards to the way I looked? Ridiculous. and it changed a few different times over the over.
What was going on? What you
It was, the standard kind of split down the middle bowl
Oh, the
cut.
bowl cut, yeah.
The glasses then too, because I think in sixth grade is when I really realized I really had a sight problem. In particular, I still remember it was like in French class where everyone's kind of yelling out colors of arms that she yells out a number and like, oh, tell me the color of the arm. I'm like, I can't see shit from back here. So yeah, I think I needed to go sit up with Kate Molt. Kate Molt was, I think, always at the front of the class because she had a bit of I think I remember a bit of a sight problem as well too. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna need glasses now. This is not gonna help at all.
Did you think that you had a nerd persona? Is that why? I mean, when you say you don't think that's going to help at all, do you mean like your persona?
I think so. I mean, I was a twig back then too. I mean, when I graduated, it was like a 5'7", 130 pounds. It's just I was small in general too. But yeah, I was also good and decent at school, and that can be attributed to things. I mean, I probably could have gone a different way, definitely, because like back in elementary school, I was actually diagnosed with ADD, so I actually had to start taking medicine for that, and it wasn't. There's two classes here, just so you know as well. There's ADD, which is the attention issue. And then there's ADHD, which is a hyperactivity issue too, which,
right.
I think you'd technically be treated with the same kind of medication, but everyone just heard ADHD. They're like, oh, he's hyper, man. Don't,
Mm-hmm.
So it felt particularly in, not elementary schools, that was about fourth grade, particularly in middle school, I felt definitely two different people on it and off, or I got anxiety about, okay, I know at this point my day is about done with my medication. Am I going to make an ass of myself, or something like that? Wow. And yeah, I mean, and also part of that too was that I was having, I had also taken it at lunch. It was only a 4-hour pill at that point.
Right.
So I always had to leave at lunch to get my next one, and so I'd finish my day. And I think I made a very bad miscalculation of actually telling people what I was going to go do and why I was leaving lunch to go to the nurse's office and what have you. So I just, this whole show, I'm just, kind of looking back, I'm like, oh my God, who was I friends with? Who did I like? Who wrote my yearbook? And in one of the middle school ones, I swear at least a quarter of the inscriptions like, oh, don't get too hyper, don't do this. They were I don't know, poking fun at it or what have you, but it felt like I couldn't be emotional a little bit, because people would be like, he's doing the hyper thing now, or he's not medicated or whatever. And it kind of is what it is in that regard. And I probably, if I didn't take it at that point in my life, I probably would not have gotten through, elementary school with the way I was doing. Because in fourth grade, third grade, fourth grade, my grades were just dive bombing. I could not pay attention to class and what have you. So yeah, I think it did kind of save me, but I think at a certain point I was like, I need to stop with this. And that really didn't happen until college. And that was a little tough, particularly for my mom, for me to stop taking it.
So meaning that you needed to stop taking medication.
Yeah, stop taking the Ritalin that I was on. Methylphenidate. I think it was that may be something else. But I was taking it, and I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna sink or swim, see how it does in college, and go from there. And it didn't change anything. I got to be more myself than anything, so which was good.
Well, I was going to ask, is it the side effects that you wanted to get away from, or?
No, I just felt like I didn't need it. No, there wasn't like side effects. It felt like it may have been more mental than anything else because of those kind of comments I was talking about.
Yeah.
It may have been. So I think it helped. It didn't help in like anxiety with certain relationships or what have you. Putting myself out there maybe because of that. And not a huge amount of people knew. Maybe a few people from like the enrichment level classes that I was taking kind of knew that. But in the end, those are probably the more likely the kids I needed to hang out with because I saw them constantly. You know what I mean? Just like with Ryan, like and being in those groups. So my thought with all of it, it's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm just gonna be one person, in one way or another, and go from there. And I graduated college similar to the way I graduated high school, around a 3.5, and it was in the end, I think a good thing for me because it allowed me to just be me.
Did you feel pressure? I mean, you say that you were a pretty good student, and you've already got ADD. Did you feel pressure or anxiety about doing well, or kind of keeping a certain level of, or something I often ask is, and I don't know, because I'm not even sure like who your friends were as far as once you got into high school, but did you feel pressure to be competitive academically?
Not really. I mean, I think part of the reason I started getting into track again and doing stuff, and it was just, for the most part, the running and what have you, because it's like, oh, we got to do college. We're going to do college. I mean, I was showing that I was really good at school and doing well. And it's just like, okay, we got to go to college. There was no real plan for a little while on what I would actually do there. And we can get into that if we start talking about like work and stuff. But yeah, there was no real pressure from my parents to do well beyond, well, they monetarily, kind of ease pressure to us in that regard. So it's like, oh, when we got, report cards, you would get so much for an A, so much for a B, you got to stuff like, okay, I can do this quarterly. Why not?
How many you have brothers? You have one brother, and then did you have any other?
Yeah.
And that was it?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna ask, so even in the house, not necessarily like competitive, because you guys are like so far apart even.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he kind of went the art route, and when I was actually looking at, because I know you've asked some people, it's like, what did you want to be as a kid?
Yeah.
No idea. I can't remember anything in particular. But luckily, they wrote that stuff down in our fifth grade yearbook. So I was putting down artist or baseball player. So I didn't end up actually doing the art thing.
Painting artist, you think?
Possibly. But yeah, I don't know if you realize, but I did a lot of that as well in high school. A few different art classes, an honors art class, and I think my senior year, where I did a lot of stuff, and was, I had kind of had my own little showpiece in the art show. But I don't know how many people actually get to it.
I never, dude, I sucked at art, like actual, drawing and painting, and it was always one of those things I never got to have like my art piece. Like I think once or twice, because they had to try and showcase everyone. Like once or twice I got in the art show, but man, I sucked at art. Still do. Even like the hardest thing about everything that I do with this podcast is design. And like sometimes I do stuff and I put it out and like I look at the design and I go, boy, I should have taken like another week before I put that out. That just looks terrible. My friends will just like my design and production friends will just shit all of it. Like after it comes out, it's like, that font is just kind of.
I mean, I think just like kind of any sport or what have you too, I mean, you got to practice it in order to get better. I mean, the one thing about particularly art, particularly if you're doing well in school, you're done the test. Oh, I'm going to flip that test over and just going to draw us a little something. I mean, one of the pieces in one of my art shows was the back of a test I drew Mr. Whitaker on.
Did you have Mr. Whitaker?
I believe so. He's the beard. Is that the one? Yeah, I had him for something in I think 8th grade regard.
Oh, see, I had him for 6th grade.
Okay. He must have moved. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong person. Was that him?
Winokur had like a big. Winokur in 6th grade had a big fro. He was C-Pod, and he had his class was next to Mr. Falatek.
I don't remember. I think it was Mr. Whitaker, or was it Winokur or Whitaker?
Winokur.
Winokur?
Yeah, with an N.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But I mean, one of the pieces I kind of put together for art show was a bunch of my drawings from on the backs of whatever test that I was done, and kind of did some drawings, like hand drawing of a teacher. Yeah. And yeah, it was, so when it came to sports, I mean, I did like, the intramural stuff, and it was like either I would get the hitting down and then the pitching got better, or I got the fielding down, and then like I couldn't hit anymore. So I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And in all those areas too. That's why I kept going with track, because like, you can just go off of the track team. You don't have to make the team. All the other ones, there's a lot of pressure, and then you're gonna, okay, we're gonna make the team. And then particularly it's harder too, is if you're not quite friends with that group to begin with, trying to get in there. Maybe you need to make the leap. I mean, like Amma did.
What do you mean? You mean in track, or
track? You can just go out and go do it. You don't have to try out. Is what I'm getting at. I'm sorry. Try out for like baseball or soccer. I mean, people are going to get cut because they can't have everybody or play everybody. Track is a completely different animal.
Did you feel like it was popular? It was somewhat popularity based. Like if they don't know who you are in a deciding factor in that way, you're kind of like,
Oh no, I don't think that. No, not to make the team. I mean, it's not like the other kids are making the choices. Obviously, I would hope so.
No, but like I've had conversations about the musicals, and we kind of felt like there was definitely like a hierarchy of who's been in the musical programs before and who's kind of like a wink favorite, and that if you're not in that circle and don't have the attention of the person making those decisions, you kind of might, even if everyone knows you're talented, you might be kind of outcast into a lesser part, or not at all in some cases. So,
is that why they call it drama club?
Oh, brother. Yeah, it was at times. It could be very cutthroat and dramatic and political.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I could never do that. I mean, I know back in elementary school, I was in the chorus back in elementary. And I think I realized I was pretty tone deaf at that point, and it wasn't going to get any better. I feel like.
Did you? Yeah. Well, did you have any music that you were into growing up?
What, like, kind of music, you mean?
Yeah, like artists.
I really didn't get really into music until middle school, because most of the stuff from the elementary school areas was like,
well, that's what I mean, like high school.
My parents liked, and then I was like, okay, give me Billy Joel Stormfront.
Yeah, that was me. That was me too. I always say that, like, you don't, like, when you're growing up, your favorite stuff is just whatever your parents are playing in the house or in the car. And for me, like, it wasn't until 4th grade when I discovered like Criss Cross and MC Hammer that I started getting my own taste. But no, like middle school, high school era, did you have like artists?
Yeah, that was I started off with like that Green Day and 311, that kind of time, because it was 95. They were like starting to become like pretty big bands, and particularly because I was hanging out with Matt Smith. He was trying to get me into the music he listened to. I don't know if you remember him, but he pretty much always wore a band t-shirt, no matter what. It was like Korn, Pantera. He tried hard particularly on Pantera. I was like, I don't know. But I did like Korn for a bit. Jonathan Davis has quite a range. If you ever really listen to some.
Everyone liked Korn.
Yeah.
Korn was big then.
That didn't stick. I mean, but yeah, the band I go back to was Green Day. It really was. Until I saw them recently, and then I was like, I like the 3-piece, the beginning group, 3-piece, 3 guys making music. It was good. I think I saw them for a few years ago, and they're like, there's like already 10 people on stage and like, come meet the new guy of Green Day. I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
My Green Day memory in sixth grade, my biggest Green Day memory at least, is always goes back to sixth grade when we went to the Poconos. And When I Come Around was like the hot single. Mm-hmm. And everyone, that's when all the kids had the hair with and it was shaved around the sides and underneath so that you just had like the hair slicked back, kind of like Roger in Doug. And you would headbang and just this piece of your head had hair and all the kids were just flopping their hair, right? Like just when I come around. I hope YouTube doesn't take that off.
Oh, no, I never did that. I grew my hair long in like college for a bit. And then for like a week, I had a mohawk that was like this long just for fun. I went to Costco with that and I just wanted to see the look on people's faces at the time. But yeah, that didn't last too long though. But yeah, I tried the whole kind of skater look for a bit too, and then felt like I got a look once, and it was like from someone I really liked, and I was like, oh, that was not good, not a good look. And I was like, I went home and like, I gotta buy new clothes tomorrow, Mom. I'm done.
So did you date then in high school?
A little bit. It was, if it was anyone in school, it was I think one underclassman, one lower than us, and then people I worked with at the time. So yeah, the people I brought to proms were were girls I was dating, and yeah, they were from other schools.
Where did you work?
To start off with, I worked at the Giant in Bluebell. So I kind of wish I worked at the Clemens. From everyone who has been talking, I mean, everyone was there. I could have been in the in-groups if I was just there.
I thought you were going to say, you had a little bit of a smirk, and I was like, are you going to say Clemens?
No, but it's like, why didn't I go over there? Granted, with Giant, I probably could have ride my bike there. Clemens, not so much.
So you were the Giant in the shopping center with the Blockbuster across from the Double T Diner.
Yeah, exactly. So I was there for about a year or so, and then I went deeper into East Norton, and then I started working at Applebee's.
Oh yeah.
So one of my girlfriends was from Giant there, if I remember correctly. I can't remember. I was trying to think about this because I knew you were going to ask these kind of questions. Like, where did the hell did I meet Crystal? I took her to prom. I don't even know where I met her. I think that's that, but I can't remember. But the senior prom, she was someone I was working with at Applebee's.
But from another school district.
Yeah. Well, she was technically homeschooled, which is a whole different ball game, and we'll get that was a little bit of a crazy relationship as well. But yeah, people from there I did date. I did see people. I did go to those dances and what have you as well. So, yeah.
Did you? I mean, you talked about like, kind of like the nerd perspective, I guess, and like when you got glasses and all that. So like, and you said you were a twig, so you're kind of like aware of like maybe like the stereotype and trying to change your look and all that. Did you look but you dated, right? So did you look at I don't know, the cool kid group from afar and like try to, I don't know, attain or hopeful to be a part of, or did you, I don't know, feel satisfied in that because you were aware of the role? Did you feel satisfied in the role?
Well, that one stare I was telling you about, that was middle school, and I was like, I mean, is it really that much better? I mean, even if you get over there, it's like, well, okay, well, do I have anything to talk to them about? It's another thing. It's like, well, what are we going to discuss even too? And does it really matter? It was a question, does it really matter? And at a certain point, I'm hanging out. I have my friends. I have my activities I'm doing. I'm doing social things. It's not like I'm not doing that. It's just school was school. I mean, you were, as long as you, and particularly in the the areas of like the honors classes and enrichment and all that stuff. You had a group of people you were kind of always around, and really these people are not going to give you flack. Really not. I mean, you run into issues that you would run into probably at gym or lunch, just the hallway, man, of getting places. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it bothered me, but yeah, obviously I've had problems. I did have problems. I mean, you actually wanted to ask you as well, because you mentioned someone I used to have problems with. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, it could be anyone.
Oh, what do you think? You've heard about me having problems with people?
No, I feel like I've got like all these incidents in my head about so many people that I've kept, that I remember on all varying degrees. So it could be anybody.
Well, I mean, at least in middle school, I had like half of the references in my yearbook. These wrote down were about this person, and he lived close to you.
Oh, lived close to me. Was it Gene?
No.
Eric?
No. Sorry, you didn't. You ended up, actually, I don't think you ended up graduating with us. And the problem is I can remember his first name, and it was like I can't remember his last name. It's like, wow, did I really have that big of a problem with us? And whatever. Do you remember Nick? You mentioned him, Nick Corliss.
Oh yeah, Nick. Oh, so yeah, when I lived in South Handler, yeah.
So yeah, me and him used to be like friends, like in middle school, and then it like seemed to flip one day. And the thing is too, it's like, yeah, it's like, yo, Nick, but that was his last name. I was like, my mind was like Cordero or something, and that's obviously not him. But yeah, it was kind of, have you kept, were you friends with him? I know he was friends with Ray, and I know he was at the funeral and everything too.
Yeah, so I could say that I'm friends with Nick now. I see Nick. I probably saw Nick about this time last year at Ray's mom's surprise birthday party.
Okay.
So Nick and I both keep in great touch with the family, and so I think for the rest of our lives, Nick and I are going to be connected through our friendship with Ray. Mm-hmm. When we were kids, we grew up like 8 houses from each other. Mm-hmm. Nick and I did. And so it was kind of like Nick was at the very end of the block. I was in the middle, and Ray was on the other end, exactly like that. And Nick and Ray were great friends, best friends. Ray was a lot of people's best friend, right? Ray was my best friend. Ray was Nick's best friend. And so our relationships with Ray were all separate from each other. Yeah. And is that going off? Can you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Great. All right, now it's gone. So our relationships were very separate from one another, but we were always in such close proximity because we walked home together. And when I was hanging out at Ray's house, Nick was often hanging out at Ray's house, and we had a tons of similar likes. Mm-hmm. But we were different kids, and the neighborhood was a breeding ground for juvenile conflict. I don't know if it was in a bad way, but exactly like what you would see on TV. Hey, this guy said this. This guy said this. Yo, you gonna just let that go? And so,
and then you got a full episode of The Wire written right there, right?
It's, you have to, you've gotta, you fight it out. And Nick, and I'll say this, Nick had it worse than I did in the neighborhood. I often think about, or at least I think, I was a biracial kid, white mom, black dad, in a predominantly black part of Ambler. And, generally felt like I didn't have much problem, but I would get picked on from time to time. But my dad was a scary black dude. And, at most I knew how to avoid shit. Mm-hmm. Nick came from a big family of all white kids, all boys, in a predominantly black neighborhood where, if someone has a problem with your older brother, now you're also a target. And Nick probably would say he didn't handle it the best way all the time also, right? Like once it was very much like high school in that way, or like school in that way. It's like you can't escape each other. You see each other every single day, and you've lived there for so much of your life. So Nick, I feel, was like in constant conflict. So I think Nick was always a target to be placed in in conflict with other people, because they would get bored, right? Oh, well, we were fucking with Nick here this day and that day. Now let's put Brad in there. And I was easy to bite. I was short-tempered. I like to act like I was tough. And so Nick and I often would have conflict about stuff. And Nick was tougher than I was. And so, yeah, we would have those issues, but would always, through Ray, not be allowed to completely forget about each other. Plus the fact that we did live at, eight houses from each other.
I'll have to say, I mean, it was probably the dumbest thing at the time. I mean, it was fucking like 7th, 8th grade. I think we got in a fight in like a math, a computer class for some reason. He knocked, I think, off my glasses, and I think I realized that was my big like set off point. Like the glasses became this surrogate for myself, and the fact that someone fucked my glasses, then I go blind. Now I go, and it goes red. We were young, and it was probably, it was stupid stuff. And I wish him all the best, and I just wish, I wish it was different. I wish we still had that, friendship. But I think particularly at that time too, it was also the glasses. People who used like their height to intimidate people, which was happening constantly, absolutely constantly. You just walk down the hall, someone's stepping in front of you. It's like, I'm bigger than you. You get out of the way. No, you step in front of me. You just purposely did that. But yeah, I mean, there's, I wish everyone absolutely that I had, any kind of problem with, or they feel like they had a problem with me just because, projecting or whatever. It's done. And I kind of wish, particularly from high school, that there was more reach out on all sides. Like you talked a bit about, like, hey, your weekends of hanging out at home. Like I didn't really have a group, like even like you have. Like I actually envy your group, because you had a group to hang out with on those things. And I didn't really, I mean, I had Matt at times, and he was probably splitting his time between me and another group too. And I kind of wish reached out, like, hey, what are you guys up to? What are you doing? And try to insert myself a little bit if I could have, or tried. And, at times I tried different groups, and we're not quite a fit here or there. And I can relate a few stories to illustrate if you'd like.
Yeah. How do you try different groups?
Well, I mean, it would start at like lunch, okay, well, I know Ryan Conway from Boy Scouts, and we hung out great on the scout trips. I'll sit with him in his group. And like his group was like Yuka. It was Jason Erb. It was Jim Paleo. I remember one lunch, we're sitting there. It's like, let's play a game. And I'm like, oh, let's play the penis game. You know what the penis game is?
No.
Penis game is just start saying the word penis louder than the other person. The person who says it the loudest and does not want to, doesn't back down from repeating it, is the winner. So now Ryan Conway is screaming penis in the middle of a lunch period. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to get into trouble for this kind of thing. It was like, wow, it was like, well, this, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know if I really want to be here anymore.
How far does it go? Because, for me, I would always kind of like I said, every year I'd start new for like lunch, but like you would hang out with, I'd find myself for like that year hanging out with Sean Higgins, or for that year hanging out with Justin Duffner. Would you hang out beyond lunch? Would you take it like into a social level?
Not too often. I mean, yeah, based off of the definition you have given for friends, that was Matt. That was maybe at Ryan's house once, Ryan Conway's house. But it was like him and Wesley Ritz, and that was kind of it. And in the end, I kind of wish I made a bit of a more leap into other groups. And I definitely regretted that right at the end. Right, absolutely right at the end. We're
At graduation.
at graduation, and we go through graduation, and you all stand up, you're gonna go out, you throw. I don't think we did it around our chairs. I think they're like, oh, go out here and throw them, and then mingle or whatever, and then just one girl, and I'm kicking myself not remembering the name. I think she dated Kevin DeProsperous, or they were really close friends. They kind of had a similar style, but she like turns to me, it's like, Paul, we graduated. And I just start bawling. I'm like the only one crying. I was like, I probably missed out on really kind of meeting some and really getting to know some other people other than, maybe the people that were kind of in those classes with me. Part of this whole thing, I mean, it maybe even partially selfish, and maybe other people will do up the same thing. It's like, I just want people to feel like they kind of know me, because I felt like people really didn't, that, I like, particularly when, Tom Beal got on, it was like, does he even remember me, and I was like, would people remember,
And you know what? Like, tons of people remember Tom. Tons of people remember Tom. People hit me up right away like, yo, I fucking know Tom. I absolutely remember who Tom was. And I know people have hit Tom up like, I remember you, dude.
Me. I did it 5 seconds after you actually in the middle of his. I went on Facebook like, friend Tom. 5 minutes later, Tom's like, friend request accepted. Sent message, Tom, I remember you. So yeah, I mean, we need to do this again. So yeah, I mean, even with Tom, like, I would sit with Tom at times for lunch, and we never went beyond that, or it felt like at certain times, like we had this kind of, like, I can always seem to remember or make an excuse for some tense relationship with that group that I'm not going to jump into that, And I mean, I've had that with parts of your group even too, where I had intense things where it's like, well, I can't really reach out to that group. And it's like, hey, what's going on? And
You mean with Nick, or do you mean with other people?
Well, I knew I guess I should have. I think I knew Nick was part of that group, but like George.
Bareka?
Yeah.
I like how you went like that. I love George. Go ahead.
We had a locker next to each other, I think in senior year. And I just, like, he was crowding his locker, and these lockers are freaking thin as all get out. And I think I moved inside, and maybe he thought it was a little too roughly. So he started having this issue with me. I'm like, hey, come on. Even on me, I'm short, he's here. I mean, George, we were really cool right before that moment. And then all of a sudden it just went the other way. And, and it'd be one thing too, if it was just him, that we would have, hey, dude, what's going on? But then there's the group behind. You know what I mean? That's that's part of the problem, and that's part of the problem that when, say, I had issues with people, who's backing them up? Well, that group's backing them up. I got no one behind me. It's just me. And then there was that fear, and like, okay, what happens here? George. We're okay. I don't care. Hopefully he's not still holding on to that little push to the side, and it wasn't meant to mean anything. But he got in my face for a couple days about it, with the backup of your group.
So what? Did you have like Josh?
Scott Ritter was there.
Scott and Josh?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that. Oh, wow. Was I there? Was I?
No. You know what? For some reason, in my mind, I always didn't have you with that group. I don't know why. Like, maybe this is just me forgetting. Maybe it is, because like when you when your first one came out with Clyburn and you had your arm around, I'm like, oh, they were friends. That was his group. Oh, that makes sense that he would interview him first. But it's like it didn't quite make sense. And it's that would be the name of the show. Like, oh, we were friends in high school. I'm like, I thought you were friends with him. And maybe it was the whole band stuff. Maybe just towards the end, maybe you guys had some certain things together and all that. But
No, we just Mike and I didn't. Mike and I had the Japanese thing, and like we talked about on the show, I took
It's
it.
a hilarious story, by the way. I absolutely love that story.
It's one of those things that when you have those incidences, like you mentioned with George, and you kind of like, and you remember it, and I remembered these things, and I took it as, well, that's the same energy we're always going to have now. Like I shouted him out and he kind of rolled his eyes, or he didn't give you the what's up, or I got on his nerves and I could feel it. So we're probably going to.
One person I had this awkward kind of, thing with back when. I'm like, oh, well, he thinks I'm an idiot. I'm not going to get in that group. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not going to happen. Or if it's like, I get there and like, oh, Paul's showing up. What the fuck is he here? And that might be just, all in my head. And it, as you probably said too, it's probably all in your head. But I really didn't have the impetus, like, I want to be part of the cool crew. I didn't want to say do the drinking every weekend. I don't think I needed that,
You said that you had wished that you had gone out a little bit more for these relationships.
I mean, at times I'm like, I did kind of reach out, and like particularly the intro of like lunch and hanging out with certain people. Like, well, yeah, I should have been like, hey, what's everyone doing this weekend? What's everyone doing on a freaking Friday night? And like, granted, when I started working at Applebee's, service, when you're in a restaurant, the busy nights where you're actually making money are the nights everyone freaking hangs out. So that makes sense. So yeah, I guess at a certain point it was kind of pointless to ask, because I would be working anyway. And it like, I wish I kind of started a little bit earlier working. But yeah, like after like me and Matt had that falling out, I just like poured myself into work. I was working insane amount of hours right before going to school.
You poured yourself into Applebee's?
Yep, into Applebee's.
Dude, that sounds like the plot.
Applebee's in all of Pennsylvania. That's where every manager goes to die, is the East Norton and Applebee's.
That feels like the plot of Waiting, that movie with Justin Long and Ryan Reynolds.
Love that movie. Love that movie.
It's the
that was the first date movie with me and my wife.
Well,
Waiting's a great movie. Absolutely great movie. But yeah, it just like when the social aspect of I didn't have that best friend anymore. That really sucked. That really sucked. So I kind of threw myself into work. I had friends at work, and then it's like, okay, well, which one of you is, at a certain point, it's like, my parents are actually away this weekend at my house. I'm like, after shift, you guys want to get some beer and come over to my place? We got a pool table. Well, okay. So yeah, I actually ended up having parties, after my senior year. But yeah, I didn't do those things. I missed out on things that everyone else seemed to get a part of, and I really didn't do, because I didn't really have that friend group. It's like, who's going to go? Who am I going with? Because even though I had the social part of like scouts and what have you, but it didn't feel like we always hung out like in school. Like I tried with like Ryan's group of friends, and they're just a little off the wall for me at the time. Particularly that kind of stuff.
Well, they talked a lot about like they were doing like video camera pranks and shit like that.
I followed them once, and it was one of the rare days we didn't have anything right after school, but I followed that whole group to Ryan Conway's house, where they set up the cars in the driveway. They all got out, and then he spent turns rapping to just a Beats track. And I was like, oh, my brain is not ready for that, guys. No, not happening. And they were just going. I'm like, you guys do you. This quite is not my cup of tea.
That's pretty interesting.
Have you tried that kind of stuff? Like you're coming up with a rap right on the spot.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny. With Ray, we used to rap when we were kids. Ray and I both love rap, but Ray was like so much more knowledgeable about rappers as a whole. But we had like a rap group that we called ourselves Pissed Off, because it was easy to replace with Crisscross. And any place where they would talk about crisscross, we would just replace it with pissed off, and we would call ourselves like the what was it, the bad daddy and the daddy bad, instead of the Mac daddy and the daddy Mac. It was a total, and we had a song called I Scorched My Socks, and we recorded it. I don't know where this tape is, but Kim, Ray's sister, and I still will talk about this, where it was like a song called I Scorched My Socks because I was getting up and down. My socks turned brown, just like Bobby Brown. So yeah, we used to do like rapping. We used to rap. I used to call Ray up.
Grammy level stuff, right? Grammy level stuff.
Oh my god, dude! We used to write raps to like popular songs. So I remember like writing, like I used to call Ray up and be like, Ray, yo, I got the instrumental to Macarena, and I wrote a whole new song to it, dude. It's about eating food.
That's writing. That's writing, though. They're like, oh, we're just gonna come up with it and put it out there. I'm like, do you want to do it? I'm like, no, not my thing.
I couldn't freestyle.
I was very, I would consider myself very reserved in high school. I didn't want to really get into things unless people got into things with me. And I wasn't, I was one of, I guess the smarter group kids, I thought at the time, and particularly Richmond and a lot of honors classes, which I didn't do all honors, but there was some things I kind of caught up on or were fall behind, or just said, okay, I'm done. I'm doing this now. Because I think that was with English. I think I realized that like honors English, I'm like, my rating, wasn't that great. But this, I think, maybe while I was with certain groups, like in Curcio's class or what have you, or Curcio's class was the only one beyond honors, or instead of doing AP English or something like that, which I was like, not me. At least that's my thought. All my memories of a lot of that group, like particularly as you call the popular crew at times, were in that class with me. And I felt like that was like kind of the first time I really had a real, steady exposure to that group. So I'm wondering if that was that. I would have to check my transcripts to know it exactly. But yeah, Curcio was a great teacher, though. I actually ran into him when I was buying my last car.
Really?
He was up in Montgomeryville, Honda, getting his car. Like, and I just they were walking around, and I just heard him talk. I'm like, I know that voice. I didn't recognize him for shit, but I know that voice. And that was Curcio. And I was like, hey, you'd be my English teacher.
What kind of like dating did you do? I mean, you had a girlfriend.
You always end up, particularly if you are not as confident in yourself, you always end up with the person who kind of ends up asking you. And that's granted that there's nothing wrong with that. But I think at that point, that I didn't realize what was good in a person I wanted to be with. So yes, I was dating people, but they were not good relationships in that regard. So it's either they would ask me, or if I would like, well, I mean, at least they're not at school with me. I don't see them, constantly in that regard. And, some of those relationships continued past even the dating, and they just end up not being a good thing to do anyway. So waiting on it probably would have been better in the end. But it maybe gives you perspective in the end. So yeah, they then really started dating, like dating a little more serious in college, and things maybe get less serious in college too.
Once you're actually in a relationship, what would you actually do?
This movies, dinner, hanging out. That was kind of it. It wasn't really group settings. Like you've talked with a bunch of people from that cool crowd. It was like group settings, and then people kind of got together or what have you. It was a lot more one-on-one in in the things that I'm talking about, or at least I did. Yeah, dating. I think if you weren't ready, man, you weren't ready, and it's okay. And not like I was ready either, and I didn't end up with any of those people either. So you just gotta like yourself eventually. When it comes to me in middle school into high school, I didn't have a huge amount of confidence in myself. You know, I'd like this kind of thing. If I try to do this in high school, I would be stressed out for like 3 hours beforehand. My wife, like 10 minutes before this happens, like, are you worried? I'm like, I'm okay. But yeah, when it came to like me coming out of my shell, that really didn't happen until I started waiting tables and having to like, hey, we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna, you know, I'm gonna help you out here, and you know, I'm going to crack some jokes, and you know, we're gonna have, you know, we're gonna get you through the meal and enjoy yourself and all that stuff. So I feel like I wish I kind of broke that open a little bit earlier in high school. So that could have been more me in high school than, you know, and then now. So like now I'm in sales. I sell laboratory equipment. So I think it's, you know, I would think that people think that's a little different from what they knew me from high school. I don't know. Maybe people have a different impression, but I always thought I was a real quiet one and maybe wouldn't go kind of this route in the end.
What did you think you were going to do when you're in high school then? Like, here's the question. What did you actually think you were going to do, wanted to do, as you're like, you knew college was going to be a thing? So, I mean, you went to Drexel, but you know, 10th grade, 11th grade, before you're making that decision, what did you think you were maybe going to fall into?
Well, I didn't fully know. And part of that was, I guess I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, or at least what major I was going to pursue when I started seeing schools. So I knew what to look for and what departments I'm looking at. So I did know it by then. And that was actually because of working at Giant. So I was a cashier at Giant to start off with. And then it's, hey, we need someone to cover in the pharmacy, be a cashier there. And it's not just being a cashier there. They wanted you to help fill bottles. The pharmacist would double check all that. So I'm kind of looking at all this. And at the same time, while I'm in this job, I'm doing this job, I'm also taking chemistry with Miss Bogdan in high school.
Yeah,
So
it's one of the ones I missed out on.
I know.
Boy, let me just take a pause, because
okay.
Talk a lot about. We talk a lot about. I give a lot of shine to Miss Castor and calculus class. Ms. Bogdan had to be like 1A as far as classes that one would hope to find themselves into, and I never got in that class. And I got to tell you, I completely forgot about her until you said the name right then. But it didn't even take. I caught on that in like 4.5 seconds. I was like, my mind was like, oh my God, Mrs. Bogdan. Yeah, so shout out to her. We got to find her.
No. Why? First off, you got to collaborate on that. Now, is that because of Miss Bogdan, who Miss Bogdan was as a teacher, or Miss Bogdan as a woman that she was?
Yeah, I never had a class. I couldn't tell you what her educational value was, but she was so pretty.
You liked looking at her.
Yeah, she was so pretty. Paul.
Oh, I still remember Peter Janik making it very uncomfortable in that class. When the way it was like 2 or 3 times where he's like, "Hey, Miss Bogdan, how you doing?"
Yeah, wow. That just came back to me for the first time.
No, but yeah, I did very well in that class. I did extremely well. I may not have been like the top percentage in that class, but I got the highest percentage on the final in that class. So that combined with being that cashier, I'm like, I know what these pills are for. I know what they do. That's Dramamine. That's the little blue pill. I counted a few of those out. That was huge right around that time. The old men coming for their blue triangular pill.
Yeah. That was like the start of it. So kids were like coming into school having bragged about taking it. And it was like, why?
No, we were all high school kids, man. You didn't need that. You could have.
But they were taking it, and you were just going like, it was like, hey, did you hear so and so took some Viagra? Why?
Girls just got to talk to you. You'll be fine.
Oh, maybe they had class with Miss Bogdan. I don't know.
Oh, I still remember with Miss Bogdan. She was definitely a type A. When you had her class, you would know what kind of person she was. She was very much everything had to be right. because she would relay this. I remember she relayed this story to us where so like she had her classroom set up a certain way and everything would be there. And she relayed a story where she would let a teacher go in and change one thing in her room, and she would go around and figure out what that is. And pretty much some teacher came in, took all her pens out of this beaker, flipped them upside down the other way, and she would come in, eventually go around and then take those pens, flip them right back up.
So yeah. when you're doing pharmacy in at Giant,
yeah,
and then you're also taking chemistry, what about? I mean, you end up in sales for equipment. What in that period though in school is like striking you while you're at work? What are you thinking that's translating into?
No, I was thinking maybe I'll go to pharmacy school, or I'll become maybe a pharmacist. But yeah, the basis and all that is chemistry. And pharmacist school is something completely different. And at this point too, I'm still taking, ADD medication. My parents are a little protective of me, and they wanted me to be close. And maybe at a certain level, I kind of want to be close too. So actually, when I went to Drexel, I commuted the first year. So I came into Ambler Station every day and took the train down. So it would be very, very long days, go down to 30th Street Station from there, walk in, hang out. I had a group of people that we were always hanging out in the student center because we were always commuting. We're all together, and we had certain classes together and go over and all this stuff. And then I was like, I was always planning on going in on the second year to go in. So this is chemistry. I was just going to do chemistry. I did look at a few different schools for chemistry. Some were good, some were not. Some gave me money, some didn't give me any. So Drexel in the end seemed like a really good option because it had, at that point, the 5-year program, which was a standard 5-year program with co-op. So you can make up a little bit of money doing it. Sure. And at the time, I got an academic scholarship for almost like a half ride the first year, which was great. Unfortunately, Drexel boomed while I was there. It really exploded out. So like that half ride turned into like a quarter ride by the time I was done there. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I was doing that, and then I was commuting in, and then next year I was like, I gotta go on campus. I needed a little more. So I wanted a little more of that regular college experience. And then, I was off that medication at that time too. So it was like, I can do this because I made at least on the easy 101 classes, I made Dean's List the first semester.
I think stuff with I guess learning disabilities are like a thing that now, and I include this with like mental health and just emotional health, and emotional well-being, as far as encouraging people, especially young people and minorities, to seek therapy more often than I think it used to be encouraged when we were actually growing up. So when you talk about, you're talking like, I don't know if you notice, but you do reference a lot, as far as being ADD and your medication. I never realized how big of an impact something like that could be. I think when I hear about ADD or ADHD, people, it's kind of like a ha-ha, or like, oh yeah, I'm taking Ritalin, or what's the other one? What's the other drug that everyone loves?
The one that has the mood part of it, Adderall.
It's like I say that they take it because it became a party drug. And it's like a laugh type of thing, and like a benefit, like, oh yeah, I have a Ritalin or an Adderall prescription, wink, wink. And that was kind of my experience through college. But certainly now I have friends with kids that it's like I hear about like the actual difficulties of the measurement of the medication, getting it right, especially being that young. And that's why I was asking about the effects of it. And it seemed like you didn't really have
No, the
effects in that way, but you clearly you were very conscious of it while you're growing up and you're transitioning into like college time, enough to say you don't want to be on it anymore, but also just dealing with it in general. It sounds like it was something that was a constant in your life that I never realized was a thing for people, because it was never talked about that like that with people I knew who had it.
Hence why, at least in the peers that knew about it, I kind of got a little bit of jab on it, and also some of those that knew about it too. At least there was maybe 2 times where someone's like, "Hey, can I buy a few off you?" And that was not, I obviously wasn't going to do that. I mean, I wouldn't even yell penis out in the lunchroom. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to get myself into trouble like that. But I mean, it bothered me because maybe I let it, and maybe I shouldn't have let everyone else know. But also the drug, and because now that I'm in like in sales and adult pharma companies, I know all this crap. But like time release became a thing. Time release capsules. So the thing was, like, when I was there, they only had a 4-hour thing, and then there was like, oh, we now came out with this 12-hour thing. Thank you. Now I don't have to go and leave and do this. I can just take one in the morning and then I go to do my schooling. But at a certain point, I wondered, like, hey, should I even have been on it in high school? Would I have been okay or not? You don't know. It's always 2020 in the afterward. But at least in college, it's like, well, I'm in college. I'm going to sink or swim on this. At least that first year might have actually, where I was commuting and I was like, okay, well, I'm stuck on a train. I'll do my work, or I'm stuck here, not, really socializing. I'm going to do this, do me and do my work.
Well, that's the thing that I've talked to a few people about. Was I had a hard time. One, you're absolutely right, because I think one of the things that people talk about is over medication of children.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, that you wondering if you needed it in reality at that age or whatever. Like, I think that was something, again, with being able to talk about these things or even being open about it. It's like evolving so much more of like, maybe we don't need medication for a lot of these, but I had a hard time knowing how to actually the logistics of learning on my own. I could sit in class and somewhat pay attention. I was a pretty hyper kid myself. I talked, I interacted, I paid attention to everything else everyone else was saying. So if someone else said something, sometimes I would involve myself in that. And then, we would take these notes, Roman numeral A, capital A, number 1, lowercase a. Like,
you would not have done well in Miss Bogdan's class, man. Not at all. That was all it.
Right. And they put it on the transparency, right? They put it on the transparency, or they wrote it on the board and you just copied and they talked it. They just literally recited what they were writing down. And I had a really, really hard time. I did best in discussion and truly understanding concepts. So, I wonder how much it was just like a lack of teaching kids in our generation. I don't know what it's like now, but like teaching kids in our generation how to actually study. That's one of the things I ask a lot of, and I guess I'll ask you, like, what was your actual studying? I mean, you recognize having a problem, or you were already diagnosed with having a problem with concentrating. What was your actual learning process?
Now, a lot of people had a lot worse than me for stuff, so I wouldn't say this is like huge thing. But yeah, I mean, when it came to studying, it was like, okay, well, those notes, you would go through them. It's like, okay, well, I do remember this part, and I would, and I always remember this because I can't even remember the teacher now. The one who liked to talk about assimilating. Do you remember that? Oh shoot.
What subject?
He was in science. 8th grade science. I forget what you would talk about pods. I'm like, I can't remember what
I had 8th grade science.
Whatever Miss Marta was in. Maybe someone else knows, but
I want to say I had Miss England Gordon.
Didn't have her. But yeah, but he talked about assimilating, and I would have to look him up, and maybe if I get a moment, I'll do that. But the assimilating, and he was like about writing it down and actually writing, and that's kind of where they did I think the Roman numeral stuff. It's like you're writing and copying. Some of that is getting in. So when it came down to going through the notes again, it would be Okay, I didn't remember this part. I'm going to write it down again in this other page. And then I'll do it again. After it's like I go through this, I'm like, I don't remember this. Write it down again. Write it down again. Write it down again. Maybe I also had a little bit, and I don't know if I had this in particular, but I thought I had a bit of a photographic memory. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But like particularly when it came to history, that came a little easier because like, okay, this was next page, this was this page, this was that page. Okay, at least I know the general time frame flow of how things were happening. But yeah, the studying. I know people mention flashcards. I was never a big flashcards kind of guy. I was more of a write it down, learn it kind of thing.
And you didn't have study buddies because you didn't have friends.
You put it that way. Yes, I didn't have friends to study with.
When you talk about like what your expectations were, like who you, I don't know, like the way you saw yourself, did you have that based off of anything? Because I talk so much about pop culture and, Saved by the Bell and 90210 and things like that. Were your expectations as you're like seeing kind of like where you're being placed, was that based on anything in pop culture?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, granted, the only thing I ever really remember watching every single morning, almost maybe late to most things, was watching The Adventures of Spider-Man in the morning. So Peter Parker.
Okay.
Smart guy, small. Oh, they drew him pretty big, but Spider-Man is usually a pretty tiny guy. But
Peter Parker was like the whole premise of Peter Parker is that he's not an imposing figure.
Mm-hmm. He's not an imposing figure. He's a smart guy. At least the versions where he's his stuff wasn't organic. It didn't come out of him like other weird things. But yeah, he made that. So he was a smart kid and did all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess that was in a certain essence a little bit of a role model in a very nerdy kind of way. But yeah, I guess I kind of imposed it on myself, and knowing I was gonna do college, I was good at this stuff, and I mean, you listen to what my history is. I was good at school. I got good grades. I didn't make national honor society, but I'm still a little bitter about it. It was kind of like a pop, it felt like it was smart, popular kids group, You got voted in once you reach a certain grade level, and then you could be voted in. But maybe I didn't reach a certain grade level high, quick enough. So I don't think I had a great freshman year, so I was always kind of making up for that.
So were you aware of that?
What
of trying to reach a certain, well, like when I asked you before about like pressure academically, and you said like, no, not really. And that was more in reference to like competition, but were you aware?
From family, yeah. It wasn't really from family. I think that was the frame of that question, was from family.
Right. But like amongst like people, your I guess your peers in school, then you were aware of like trying to make a certain, because you knew that freshman year held you back.
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't, because I wasn't doing that much. As I said, once I got more stuff on my plate, I had to really budget my time. I still remember, one of the worst time budgets of my, my whole academic career was the Miss Sherman's About Me binder. Do you remember doing those About Me?
Yeah, 8th grade health, absolutely. I still have one.
It took, I think I did at least half of it the night before. The whole thing, like half of the whole project the night before. And that was like the project to get done. And I was like, oh, I'm never doing that again.
That's your whole life. That's supposed to be like your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. I did like half of it the night before. And got like a C. I mean, it was passable, but it was bad. It was like, oh, I was up so late doing it. And I was like, wow, why did I let that happen? But yeah, when it came to the impetus to do stuff and be good, I mean, and part of that because it came a little naturally, and maybe it is too, and maybe it's a little chemically enhanced as well, because when it comes to the ADD, maybe this is only spitballing, that maybe you have some of that, and maybe it's just because most kids are not interested in absolutely everything, which is what we throw at them all through high school and grade school. We don't throw every subject at them. Everything's going to stick, because it doesn't interest everyone. And and maybe that was helpful for me to have that when I had the, the Ritalin, say, in my system, and it may be a disadvantage. I have no idea, but when it came to school, there was a bit of a, hey, I need to do well. I want to do well. I want to go to college. I want to set up a good life for myself. And then, and the fact maybe this whole thing is very, planned in the fact that it is reference to pop culture. This is how we're going to do well in our lives. We have to go this route. And maybe, that is not obviously for everybody. And maybe that was really pushed before, and maybe not so much now. And it could be very interesting how my life would be different if I didn't say do that. Maybe if I went the artist route, which maybe grades maybe didn't matter as much. Maybe.
Did Scouts have any influence at that point now while you're about to go to college? I mean, was there any aspect of Scouts that could have been a future for you, or was already an influence in your decision of what you were doing with going to Drexel?
Well, the Scouts do promote a bit of independence, even though it's kind of like, military junior. It's like a little bit uniforms, fall in, bugle in the morning, kind of thing. But it did create a little more independence in you. And in the end, you actually have to create a project. You have to do all this stuff kind of on your own and get people excited and do, a project with you. Like, you're supposed to put 20 hours in, but everyone else is supposed to put in like 80 hours as well. So you have to get people to come and do it with you. And it's community service in the end. Speaking of that kind of stuff, because you mentioned a few times the video lab or whatever. Sorry, TV lab. Did you know Yanni Aronson, by the way, in that group?
Before he became the mayor of Conshohocken?
Yeah, mayor, another cross country guy too. He was impressive. Stilo, man.
Stilo, as he, it's funny because like he doesn't, he's not that personality anymore, I guess. But yes, Stilo was like the first.
Found his old videos, man. What if they drug them?
He was the first guy, and I don't know if people really remember, but like I completely remember he was the first guy really doing stuff where I thought like I felt like a twinge of jealousy, where it was like, oh, this guy's not doing like school updates, morning reports, he's doing his own show. It was like Tom Green, Jackass was just like becoming a thing, and he was doing like, I remember he
came shirtless to Merry Mead Farms and dancing and singing with cows.
I remember he came into the senior cafeteria, and we were juniors, I guess, and we were eating up there, and he came in and someone was playing music on a boombox, and he came in and like stripped down, like took off his shirt and like almost took off his pants, and it was all on camera. And that's what made TV Labs cool. Like, oh, we can create something. He was the first guy to like do his own show type of thing that I'd seen.
Yeah, and now he's in the public eye. You don't want those videos to come out. Maybe they're along with the ones with the Trojan on the toilet.
That was your crew that you were afraid of.
I wasn't really. No, I was friends. I like to think I was at least friends with all of them, and I reached out to Jason after your podcast, after I heard it and everything. And we actually have some family up in Clark Summit, so I'm definitely going to try to reach out to him and hang out when all this is over and get a coffee again. Maybe the same place you guys are at. That
place closed down. That literally, I think the week that the show came out, that place closed down.
Oh shit. Okay, different place. I guess we'll go to a generic place like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks.
Starbucks, yeah. Let me ask you then. So you went to Drexel. So I imagine for you, I mean, you wanted to stay close to home. It sounds like. It sounds like control, or at least like leveling out your ADD and your medication was something that was like on your mind. But when you got to, and then, commuting, and I commuted, I went to Monco for my first 2 years and got my associates. And then I commuted to Temple, to main campus, and then living on campus for my senior year. So like, I did that whole gradual, moving on into the whole thing. But Drexel for you in general, you're going in for chemistry or for pharmacy?
Just chemistry, straight up chemistry. pharmacy program. Yeah, I didn't do the whole pharmacy thing because, you know, my thing was Miss Bogdan. I did well in chemistry. I don't know how the pharmacy, maybe that'll be part of it. Maybe I'll go the second round to that. So when I kind of got there, I'm like, okay, I just gotta, you know, I gotta do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do my 101s, get through my first year, come on second year. And then when I realized I came on the second year, it's like, I don't have anybody here anymore. I don't have any friends at the school here. So I actually ended up fairly quickly, well, actually, no, not even the fall term, but winter term, because they have a 4-term year. Because they go year round at Drexel, by the way, joined a fraternity.
Oh, wow.
So those guys are the guys that I go to that are my guys now, the friends I made there. Yeah, John Friedis, if he listens to this, my guy. But yeah, particular right now because he's got, you know, kids down in Little Grove. We hang out regularly, at least very regularly before the COVID thing happened. But yeah, I came on. I realized that it was like I don't have a social group here. I need to get into something here, and got into that and had a blast doing that kind of stuff with the fraternity.
So, I mean, Dustin talked a little bit. He was in a fraternity as well. For you, you know, we hear about Greek life. I imagine Drexel is slightly different.
Just a little bit. Greek life is not a huge part because it's a huge community school, just like Temple is. And even Temple had a few fraternities. And I've been to this, you know, my fraternity on Temple's campus. That's a tough pill to swallow over there, man.
I missed it. I missed the whole thing, dude. I never saw it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were like drinking like alcoholics in like an off-campus dormitory, and we didn't know other people were partying. we were like doing I had no idea that there were these other parties.
I mean, I joined a fraternity that was the way they put it. It's like we're a whole bunch of slapcocks. That's seriously what was said in one of the meetings. We were just a bunch of goofballs, basically, and we had a lot of fun. We had parties. We had all this stuff. Girls over, dated a bunch in college, of course, too, because of all that. But yeah, when it was all done, now I wasn't still dating any of those people, of course. And then I don't know if you caught this, but I actually met my wife after college on Match, by the way.
Oh, so that's where Mr. Hood met his.
Oh, that's cool. But yeah, I mean
actually, Mr. Hood, I think Mr. Hood did OK Cupid.
Okay. All right. I think my brother did. Oh no, I don't remember.
Well, you and I briefly talked about this as far as like, you know, I'm still doing the online.
It's tough. It's got to be tough for you, man, right now. I mean, I know there's even a whole show based around it on Netflix now. Seriously, yeah. It's called Love in the Time of Corona.
Why aren't I should have a producer credit on this.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I met her on Match, and it was right at the beginning of it. So it's like, I think they just recently went to non-pay, but it was pay then. And I know Brian did. Brian Dunn met his wife on that, like almost the last day of it all. But yeah, it was pay. I bought like 6 months of it and met my wife like a month in or so. And yeah, it was it worked out. It worked out well. I mean, she was actually my third or fourth date. Third / fourth because of various circumstances. But and I was her first on it. So she lucked out a little bit on that, I'd like to say. But yeah, it was dating, man. Dating sucks. Even with all those tools, it still does suck.
So was that when you were in college?
Yes. So I was saying, I was like a fraternity. Like I met everyone coming to my house or coming to my, off-campus fraternity house is where I met people I was dating. And when you're not comfortable like that, or you go to bars and then you're trying to hit on them. I tried Oh, it sucks.
I'm terrible at it.
So uncomfortable. It's like, how do you even approach that? And so that's why I kind of went that route. And I messaged a few different people, went on dates that were just bad, or just a bad setup. And the whole dating thing in the end is where these people can actually fit with your life. Are they going to fit? Are they not? I mean, is this right? Or is it's going to be weird? It's like, oh, am I going to go as a 22-year-old with the 18-year-old girl who likes country? Not quite. Am I right out of college and I am got my bachelor's in chemistry, I'm working in the lab? Is this person going pre-med into doing residency and doctorship see me as any kind of equal? And that wasn't the level we were all working at there. It wasn't going to work out. Sometimes they showed it that it wasn't going to work out. Sometimes I had to show it. Then I met my wife, and it was her first date, my first date with her. We met at a bar, what I thought was a Manioc, basically, a Manioc group home. And we realized on the first date that we kind of were in sister apartment complexes from each other. So across Henry Avenue in Andorra from each other. So she actually felt comfortable enough on the first date to come back to my house to watch a movie, which was, do you remember what movie I mentioned earlier?
No.
Waiting.
Oh, yeah. You said that. Yeah. What's your wife's name?
Judy.
Judy?
Yeah.
So you guys meet on Match,
Mm-hmm.
and it progresses from there. At what point do you guys get married?
I propose about just a year out, actually, only about a year. So we were married by the time, I think it was, okay, so it was so we met in 2007. We were married in 2009. And we've been together 13 years.
Wow.
She's the only person I've had more than past a 6-month relationship with. Yeah.
And how many kids?
3 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old?
9, will be turning 6, and 1.5.
So you're just getting out of like the crazy zone of like no sleep and.
Oh yeah. He's sleeping through the night. Now, COVID teaching has been tough. He's probably watched a lot more TV as a young 1.5-year-old than I would really have liked, but it's the only way we're getting through this. It really is. And we worry because my son has viral induced asthma. So we are very worried about how, if he were to say get this, if it came into the family, more than likely he's going to get it. And he's been hospitalized twice for it when we first realized he had it. So it means, like, if he catches something, he starts coughing, we need to start immediate albuterol treatments. So he can expel anything from his lungs, because he was basically, when the first time he got it, he had like 104 temperature. He was breathing very, very, very quickly. It was bad, and he was hospitalized for like 1.5, actually, 1.5, 2 years old. Yeah. So this is a big deal. This whole thing is a big deal to us, and we are taking as many precautions as possible. So if we can continue doing homeschooling until there's a good amount of herd immunity via vaccine, that's probably at the point where we're going to be okay with allowing all this to happen. So that's our big get right now, is making sure this is he's safe, because I think he's the critical person here. The problem is that I have to see customers at some point, and I have to be exposed. And I go to areas where I work in the sciences, so a lot of these labs I go to, they are aware, and I thought that was very, very apparent on one of my last trips. But the most recent one, I'm like, why isn't everyone wearing a mask? And why don't you? It's got to go over here above, just a little bit. Please help me out here. So it's a big worry, and now we're analyzing everything we do.
Well, so I mean, you go from you went from like chemistry, or really like pharmacy to chemistry. How do you get into sales?
Okay. So the first job out of college, I was actually working in a lab, and it was not. It was okay. It was routine. It was working in a factory, coding catalytic converters for cars. So we did metals analysis. I won't bore you with all that stuff, but basically, every year I was doing a little bit different thing. So like one year I was like, okay, I'm doing this job. Okay, I'm done doing this job. I'm going to move to a different group. I'm going to do this. I think I got engaged, and then I was like, okay. Someone told me, it's like, well, you can get a higher, pay if you get your master's. Okay, well, now I'm in this job. They actually will help me pay for my master's. So I started actually going to Villanova while I was there. So I went and did evening classes for my master's at Villanova, which was around the corner from it. So I was in King of Prussia. Got my master's from Villanova. Eventually, I actually ended up getting fired from that job. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's just I was not using my time correctly in the end there. But was out of work for just a little bit, and then got this offer to, hey, do you want to do sales? And they primarily, I realized when I was there, they were primarily hiring people straight out of the lab that are like, okay, do you want to get into sales? And I know you mentioned this in regards to sales. Sales isn't, particularly if you're selling to the masses, like every person down the street, you may be fully commission based. When you're in like sciences or something that, they give you a freaking base, man. And you fight for that base because you never know what's going to happen. And so that I transitioned into doing sales for them. I basically covered the entire country. Never been everywhere, of course. But I've done, certain road trips, certain places, primarily mid-Atlantic to Northeast in most of my sales. So I've driven a bunch of different places and seen a bunch of different things. But yeah, it's kind of got into, so part of the thing with, the cattle converter thing was, you're going to you make a powder basically. So in that job, the reason I kind of lost my focus and a bit of the end was I felt like a glorified baker. So I put powders together, a bit of liquid, put it in an oven, take it out, grind it by hand, take it out, put it in a grinder, take that, put it and press into a pellet, and then put it on our X-ray fluorescence machine. That was all I did constantly. And it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't fulfilling at all. So I realized I was a more social person than that, I think. And when I kind of brought out like, hey, I'm looking at these jobs where, what do you think of sales? When I was asking my friends, and they're like, oh, you should do it. You should definitely do it. Because you get along with a lot of people in regards to the, you could talk about this stuff. I like to say, particularly when I was interviewing, like my superpower is taking this high level concept and regurgitating at a level that kind of works for both of us. And I had to do a lot of that. It's like I also joke, and it's like, I'm like a better paid teacher. We gotta meet on a certain level where we're all talking the same language and we can meet and fix this problem. So when I first started out, I was selling, laboratory grinders, sieve shakers, particle size stuff. And then I started selling particle size analyzers. And then I started selling now water extraction equipment and science stuff. So it's a little bit jump back the other way. But yeah, it's been a lot of interesting things, a lot of travel, a lot of driving. A lot of talking science and being a bit of a nerd every day, basically talking to people about this stuff. So it was kind of right up my alley in that regard. So yeah, it's kind of thinking outside the box, even within the bureaucracy of, these companies, you kind of like, how can we do all this better so I'm not annoyed next time this happens? It's a lot of the things I deal with.
Every job has that problem.
Yeah. You've talked and you've touched on how tragic the 2001 classes, and at a certain point I get annoyed at myself too for not having close relations with everybody in college and sorry in high school, because I didn't get every note when it came to who had passed.
Right.
And one that really hurt was not knowing that Keyshawn had passed. I did not know until Tara Cooper-Smith. I ran into Tara Cooper-Smith at my my community pool, basically, for my apartment complex, same one I met my wife at. I ran into her and she told me about Keyshawn. I did not know that happened for years later. I didn't know about Matt Smith until about a year later. That's the biggest tragedy for me in regards to high school. That I wasn't on those text chains, I wasn't on those call chains when something tragic freaking happened to people I technically knew and I would want to be there for and be there for the family. That was the worst part of it. Because I would have been there for Keyshawn. Me and Keyshawn were doing an enrichment together. He had been in scouts. I know he didn't quite finish everything, but that's how I kind of knew his mom. That's how I knew him as a person.
I'm very sentimental in that way. If I have one experience with somebody, that's my memory of that person, especially if I never had a new experience. And so, like having Cub Scouts with certain people, or working at Wawa with certain people, or playing, baseball with certain people. It's like, that's my memory. And that's the memory I keep when I think about my life. Mm-hmm. When I think about, my life in that period of time, even if I had never had another experience with that person exists in that world. And so when I hear about, someone passing from that world, it's like, oh, wow, really? Like it's that memory from that period of my time now that I go, oh, wow, that's something from that period of my life. And it's maybe a selfish way of thinking of it, but something from that period of my life that touched me is like gone. I'm never going to be able to revisit that. I'm never going to be able to touch that again. It's only going to exist in ways like this, in storytelling, in conversation with other people that remember it, but otherwise it's gone.
Yeah. Not knowing about like Matt Smith immediately, not knowing about Keyshawn immediately. It's like, why wasn't I involved in these? Why wasn't I on whatever, text chain or what have you? Even at a certain point in college, Facebook was there, and then they had the wall, they could put this kind of stuff. I didn't know about certain things until, and maybe we need to be more aware of letting people know about this, like people who had passed, who, class of 2001, this had happened. Please let everybody know. Come if you can. Do whatever you can, whatever you want to, where you feel comfortable with. Feel like we had those tools for a little bit. Somewhat not until like maybe 2000, really well until like 2005, 2006 maybe. But I wish it was done a little bit more, because I didn't know about Digic until your thing. I didn't know about Kirong. I'm sorry, I'm missing.
Keydon Kim. Well, you know what it was though for me was I had AIM. I was big on AIM as far as like I collected instant messenger names, and I used to talk to people that I never talked to in high school. I used to talk to them in on AIM like in college. And that's where I would talk to people about, you know, about Bethany or about Keyshawn or whatever, like, or at least I would be in the know about things that were going on. Because I just always had this weird like obsessiveness with like keeping contact with like people that I knew. I came into college not having like friends, not having new friends, right? Like my best friend had passed, and then I started at Monco, and it's kind of like a brand new world. And my crew that had existed in high school, which was largely built around Ray, wasn't the same as it was. You know, we weren't all tight like that. Once we all graduated, we all very much so went our own ways. And it was tough. It was tough to find a social group. And so I think I very much, until my second year when I got really into college radio and met a new group of friends and started like getting into college world through doing like a on school activity and having parties and stuff like that, and everything that comes with like the music promotion world and all that shit. Prior to that, I think I was very much so still trying to strengthen bonds that I'd started to make senior year in high school. Even though all those people had moved on to other schools, I think I was very much trying to like, oh, okay, well, these are the people I've known my entire life. Let's make that better. I get along with them more than I did in middle school and the beginning parts of high school. So keep going. You know, I think I was still in that world, even though those people were going to school in DC and, you know, Bloomsburg and California and wherever. Online world was very much still my atmosphere.
Gotcha. Yeah, I felt like that's great that you did that. We're able to do that. We're trying to.
Well, point of that is that I think that's what kept me in tune with, you know, unfortunately, people passing away. Was I was still in the conversational world of, oh, did you hear about so and so, you know, the other day?
That's great. I wish. I always, you know, as I said, I wish I was kind of more connected with a lot of different people, and, you know, felt like when I started college and trying to, you know, get there and try to keep up with certain, you know, granted, I tried with one person, I'm not going to call them out, but I tried to keep something going. I felt like it wasn't back and forth, and, you know, and I kind of look at it back now, like now, it's like, well, they're away at college, they're doing things. I am technically home and commuting. So, you know, I am leaning on this relationship a little bit more than I probably should have. But yeah, dude, I've always thought, and I think I've had a lot of your signatures in my yearbooks over the years. I always thought that if we tried, we could have been friends. I really do. I really do think that we could have been. And that, because I don't have anybody who ever signs me your book that is not my friend, you know, in regards to like we get along with, you know. So I always thought that. And that's why I think you're a good bridge in this, because I mean, if, you know, you can, you know, be a friend with, you know, anyone, maybe people you didn't even have classes with, let alone, you know.
I can't believe that you're not in my yearbook, dude. I'm like, I feel like I looked at this a bunch of times and you were.
Look at the old ones. I feel like I have middle school ones of you that are here.
Well, I don't know. I guess you didn't sign mine, but I did have one question because I read your yearbook and I'll just go through it real quick. But
what's up?
Cross country, indoor track, outdoor track, varsity club. And then your quote, everything that is really great and in spirit, everything that is really great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom. Albert Einstein.
Yeah. I think that that was because of maybe a bit of honors art in that regard. You know, like honors art was, it's like, hey, we have to do certain things, but otherwise just create whatever the fuck you want. Do whatever you want. The things you like to do, you gotta give it time to do, you know, to and allow yourself to do, be it art, be it what you're doing here, and it's just, I think that's kind of where the reason why I put that in there. Because it was, I think, very important that I, at a certain point, be me. Obviously everyone needs to be them, but me, it was like, okay, I'm going to be the smart kid who does art and then also does sports. I felt like I was all over the place. I didn't have any focus. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do all this.
That's okay. That works.
Yeah.
Well, the question I have though is, you say thanks to my family who gave me the freedom to be myself. Reality is only limited by your imagination. Good luck 2001. So I guess my curiosity was just in regards to that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
What did you view that as senior year, or when you said that, or whenever you wrote this? I guess 11th grade you had to write it probably, but
no, I think it was a reflection on my entire high school career. I don't think it was exactly that year in particular, and that's kind of been the basis of what I was exactly saying. They weren't trying to force me to do this certain thing. Do the art. Don't do the art. Do the school. Don't do the school. Kind of thing. Go to college or what have you. I think the only thing they would like say, we're going to figure out how to get you to college. Not if you cannot, we're not going to do military. That was by far the low. The one bar that we're going to figure out. We're not going to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, they just didn't feel like that was for me. But yeah, they just kind of let me do the things that interested me, and they supported me in that regard of what I wanted to do. For a second, I thought you were going to ask me about, varsity club, because I can tell you I have no idea what the hell that's about. I think I was like, I got a varsity letter and like, hey, do you want to show up and be in a picture? I'm like, I'll be in another picture. Why not? I'm not in many.
I think that's it. I think that's all it was. There's one day part of the podcast, I'll go through the descriptions of all the different clubs, but for now, it's just more fun to ask people if they knew what the fuck they were doing in the clubs they were in.
Yeah, I think on the picture day, it's like, oh, you got a varsity letter going. It's like, oh, we're going to promote being a scholar.
But there you are.
Yeah. A bit of a lower, I think the line was here. I think that right
there. Both. Well, yeah, I mean, I think hopefully now people will listen to this podcast and they'll go, oh, I totally remember Paul. And now they will hit you up and go, Paul, I remember you. And I'll bet they'll go like, oh, we were totally friends in high school. What, you remember?
No. I do. Yeah, I kind of wonder. Yeah, I do. Because I don't really keep up. I keep up with those people. I don't go back to to any of the events, at least before COVID.
A lot of people don't. I'd say 2/3. No, seriously, like 2/3 of our class hasn't done them.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know if you've heard Paige's, but Paige herself didn't even make the last one. So like that's her thing now, is that like her pledge is to try to is that we're going to try and make the 20-year a thing. And I think especially now that everyone's connected, I think everyone is more willing to try and make this a thing because we're all talking.
This is awesome. I'm glad you're doing this. I wish you, the best in all, everything you're doing, because, this media stuff, I mean, it's not a slow build of sales. It's it's all of a sudden you're going to probably break out and do whatever you need to do and want to do in life. And I hope that happens for you as well.
We'll see. I have no expectations. So, I just that's why you just kind of keep going with what you're doing with what I'm doing with work, and we'll see, just kind of try and stay steady. Keep putting out shows. That's the goal. Just keep putting out shows. Hopefully when quarantine kind of gets done, maybe you and I can we can catch a beverage together and, catch
this is about 20 years overdue. We should have hung out. Really. I mean, I kind of always thought that in regards to you and me kind of at least being okay. And it might have been, who knows, might have been because of that whole Nick situation or whatever. I have no idea.
George or
yeah. You in touch with George?
Oh yeah, I talked to him. I talked to probably weekly.
Oh, good. Yeah, probably was,
George is
silly
going to text me Monday afternoon. George will text me about this, no doubt. When this airs, literally that day, I will hear from George about this episode.
But I have no ill will about all of it. Oh.
No, it'll be good. It'll be good. I'll ask him about it.
And I really did. I wish, and all those times when there was like fights that happened for one reason or the other, I was like, what in the world is going on? I always from like that perspective now. It's not even then. It was like, why is this happening? Why do I have to do this? There was even another incident within our class where someone fought me because he was antagonizing me, and then he broke his hand on my head. But I kind of lost. I might have lost that fight. I don't know. But he broke his hand. Maybe he'll hear it. Maybe he'll know who he is. But
you're not going to say who it was?
Huh?
You're not going to say who it was?
It was in art class, of all things.
Of course it was in our class. That's the show, Paul. Who broke their hand on your head?
Maurice Johnson.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Maurice. His album I think is in stores. So
seriously, he did that. Oh, fantastic! Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah. I was probably a target. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, threw something at me. I threw something back at him, and then he took that as, "Oh, we need to fight." So
that happens.
So is it classical music? I'm guessing not.
Hip hop.
Hip hop.
He's a rapper, yeah.
But yeah, that was what, back in the early art days. So either it was sophomore, junior year, something like that. I have no idea. That's long time, ancient history. All right, man. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great.
Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Or do you think you nailed it?
No, I'm not going to mention the crushes. I'm going to let that go.
Well, thanks, Paul.
All right, man. Peace.
Later.
Later.